My roommate was secretly applying for a room change. I asked her curiously, "Why are you switching rooms? Don't we get along well?" She gave a dry laugh. Another room invited me." As she said this, she kept her head down, her voice trembling, not daring to look at me. But when she talked to the other roommates, her body language was noticeably more relaxed. My heart sank. "Is it something I did that made you uncomfortable living here?" No. How could that be?" she denied in a panic. "Don't overthink it. It's not about you, really." Upon hearing that Ashley was moving out, the RA, Emily, wanted to organize a farewell dinner. Ashley waved her hands repeatedly, refusing. No need, it's not like we'll never see each other again." I felt a pang of sadness and asked her, "Why are you switching rooms? Don't we all get along?" Hearing my voice, Ashley's body flinched almost imperceptibly. She forced a couple of dry laughs. Another room invited me." She kept her head down, pretending to be busy, avoiding my gaze. But when she spoke to others, her body language was noticeably much more relaxed. My heart sank. "Ashley, is it something I did that made you uncomfortable living here?" Ashley suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with near panic. She shook her head vehemently. No, how could that be? Don't overthink it, Wendy. It's not about you. Really." Ashley hurriedly moved out that very day. Forget a farewell dinner. She didn't even want to say much to us. "Don't you find it weird?" I asked. "Why does Ashley seem so afraid of me?" My roommate Haley retorted impatiently. "Forget about her, she's heartless. She wouldn't even have a farewell dinner with us. It's like we bullied her or something." Emily the RA looked frustrated. "It was my fault for trying to be nice. She didn't even mention a farewell dinner. Why did I have to bring it up and make things so awkward?" "It's not your fault," Haley comforted. "It's just that Ashley's schedule is so different from ours. We all go to bed at 9 and she likes staying up late. When we're all asleep, she probably feels bad about turning on the lights. Other rooms sleep late, so she won't have that issue. It's probably better she moved out. We'll all be more comfortable." As Haley said, after Ashley moved out, our room's sleep schedule became more harmonious. By 9, we were all cleaned up and ready to sleep while the other rooms were still laughing and talking loudly. However, one day, Emily suddenly asked me, "Wendy, what time did you come back last night?" "Huh." I was confused. "Didn't I come back right after dinner?" Emily said, "I mean when you left the room later." I was completely lost. "Later?" "No, I took a shower and went to sleep." "You didn't leave the room after 9? Emily's voice had turned strange. I didn't know why she was asking, but I still replied, "No. I've always had good sleep, never getting up in the night. I sleep straight through until morning." "Are you sure?" Emily's face looked terrible. I realized something was wrong and asked, "What is it?" She stared at me for a moment before quickly shifting her gaze away. "Nothing," she said. She said nothing, but she seemed absent-minded ever since. She asked me, often stealing glances at me. If I caught her looking, she would immediately pretend to be busy. Her strange behavior made me uneasy. That night, I had difficulty falling asleep and had a nightmare. I woke up covered in sweat. The room was pitch black. It was still before dawn. I didn't know what time it was. I was still thinking about my nightmare when, suddenly, I sensed someone at the foot of my bed. Looking over, I was horrified to see Emily on my bed ladder, half of her body inside my mosquito net. Her face wore a bizarre, exaggerated expression, staring at me with terror. "Ah!" I screamed in fright, flipping myself up on the bed. "Ah!" An even more terrified scream came from Emily. Then a loud crash. She fell from my bed, hitting the floor. Haley and I rushed Emily to the hospital that night. The doctor said, "It's not serious, she just twisted her leg, it will be fine once it's set." Emily, however, demanded that the doctor check her brain thoroughly. I asked Emily, "Why did you sneak into my bed in the middle of the night?" She avoided the question and wouldn't answer it. The same day we returned from the hospital, Emily secretly went to the counselor to apply for a room change. The counselor then asked Haley and me to meet with her. "Wendy," she said with hidden meaning, "don't just focus on your scholarship and ignore your relationships with other students. Roommate relationships need care and attention. Miss Chun, what do you mean? Haley heard the counselor's odd tone and angrily said, Hasn't Wendy been considerate enough? Knowing Ashley's family situation wasn't good, she gave her the student aid and worked hard to earn a scholarship for herself. What did she do wrong? If there's something wrong, you need to ask Emily. Why did she climb into Wendy's bed at night? What was she trying to do? Why didn't she even give an explanation? Just because she fell. The counselor glared at Haley and then softened her tone, only advising me, Wendy, if one person asks to change rooms, maybe it's their problem. But when one or two apply to change rooms, maybe you need to look inward. Do you understand what I mean? Miss Chun, I asked directly, did they change rooms because of me? They didn't explicitly say so, the counselor paused briefly. But when they mentioned you, their attitudes were all weird. Okay, I understand, I'll reflect on it. Reflect on what? Haley asked, looking annoyed as we left the counselor's office. Miss Chun always bullies the soft targets. I didn't respond. I noticed the word the counselor had used. Weird. The recent string of events had given me the same feeling. I wanted to talk to Emily and Ashley, but they blocked my number. The messages I sent were marked in glaring red. I tried to catch them. During class, they would pretend to chat with others, deliberately ignoring me. After being coldly rejected several times, I gave up. Haley lived close to campus, and she went home every weekend. When she left, it was just me in the room. At 9, I went to bed as usual. I don't know how long I slept, but relentless ringing woke me. I groggily picked up my phone. It was 11 p.m. It was Haley. Calling so late must mean an emergency. I quickly answered, Hey Haley, what's up? You're something else, Wendy. Haley's excited voice came from the other end of the line. Girl, I didn't know you were eating so well behind my back. I was confused. What? Stop pretending. Haley sent me a picture via WeChat. My eyes widened as I looked at it, my drowsiness vanishing. In the photo, I was in a close embrace with the campus heartthrob. The pose was extremely intimate. My head spun. Wasn't I in my room lying in bed right now? When did I hug the campus heartthrob? When was this photo taken? I asked Haley immediately. Just now. Wendy, stop pretending. I saw you. Haley, I'm in the room. The girl you saw wasn't me. How could that be? Haley retorted emphatically. It's you. The face, the hair, the clothes, the shoes, the bag. Everything is exactly the same. Pause to think. I'm on the phone with you. Isn't that girl on the phone as well? Haley's voice hitched. She belatedly realized. Oh yeah, she doesn't seem to be on the phone. Wait, I'm going to see who that is. Then she hung up. I anxiously waited for Haley to call back. A long time passed, but nothing. I decided to call her back. The phone rang a few times before she answered. Haley, did you find anything? I asked. Silence filled the line before Haley spoke in a trembling voice. You. After that single word, she hung up the phone abruptly. I sensed an escape. I called back, but she didn't answer. I sent her messages, but they were ignored. I couldn't help worrying about her safety. Haley, are you okay? Please reply when you see this, no matter what. However, no matter what I sent, I couldn't reach Haley. I was in a daze that night. Luckily, it was Sunday the next day. I thought I would see Haley back at school. Instead, I received a call from the counselor. She was furious. Wendy, didn't you listen to me? Didn't I tell you to care about your roommate relationships? I felt a bad premonition rising in me. And indeed, her next sentence was, Haley came to the office today asking to switch rooms. Aren't you too close? What is going on? I rushed to the counselor's office. The counselor lectured me. While she was tired of it and went to the restroom, I secretly used her computer and WeChat to message Haley, Emily, and Ashley, telling them they needed to fill out a form for a room change and to come to the office immediately. After sending the messages, I deleted the chat history and set their accounts to do not disturb, so the counselor wouldn't find out what I did. After that, I rushed to the first floor to wait and successfully intercepted the three of them. I had tried countless times to talk to them, but every time I showed up, they dragged other students away and didn't give me a chance to speak. Now I had cornered all three of them. I just want to know what's going on. Why are you all avoiding me? Faced with my questions, they all turned away, not wanting to answer. We've been friends for so long. If I did anything wrong, can't you tell me? It hurts so much to be isolated like this. As I spoke, my eyes reddened. Haley glanced at me secretly. I could see she felt a little pity. Haley, we were the closest in the room. I don't know why you suddenly stopped answering my calls and messages. We were fine just the day before. Is it because of that girl? When they heard that girl, they all changed color. Can you tell me what's going on? I don't want to be kept in the dark. Please. My pleading gaze fell on each of them, finally resting on Haley. Haley looked conflicted, her eyebrows deeply furrowed, her lips twisting. Haley, I just want to know what happened, I said softly. A flicker of compassion crossed Haley's face. She seemed to steel herself. Wendy, do you know what I saw when I chased after her that night? Haley told me that night she chased after, she saw me. Not someone else, not someone who looked like you, it was you. I called your name and you replied right away. I said, Wendy, you lied to me, saying you were sleeping in the room. You take me for a fool. You apologized and said you didn't want anyone to know you were dating the heartthrob, begging me to keep it a secret. We're very close. After being friends for so long, I know everything about your way of talking, your gestures, even the clothes you like to wear. I can say 100% that was you. But as I was talking to you happily, I received a call from you. You were calling me from the room. So who was that in front of me? I was scared stiff at the time, not daring to say another word. I quickly made an excuse to leave. Haley clenched her fists tightly, as if that was the only way to keep herself together. Her condition was not good. After a few sentences, she was already sweating. I had had many guesses. I originally thought it was a person who looked extremely similar to me and had a conflict with her. However, seeing Haley's reaction, I knew Haley was not someone who lacked courage. Her reaction was so real that I had to wonder, could there be another me in this world? I forced down the turmoil in my heart and held her fist, trying to pull her from that fear. Her body trembled slightly as she looked at me. I gave her a comforting look, and her facial expression relaxed slightly as she slowly exhaled. At this time, Emily, who had been silent, also spoke up. I also thought I was losing my mind. One night after Ashley moved out, it was close to when the dorm doors were going to close. I got up to use the restroom. Coming out of the restroom, I saw you, she said, staring right at me. That you indicated it was me. You were dressed and ready to leave. I was shocked, asking you where you were going so late. You said you had plans with friends and had to go out. I told you that the dorm was about to close and if you went out, you might not be able to come back to sleep. You told me not to worry, that you had a way. After you left, I was worried and couldn't sleep. The dorms close at 11:30. I counted the time, thinking if you came back before 11:30, it would be okay. But you didn't return. I thought you must have slept at a hotel. However, the next morning, you woke up in your bed. I asked where you went last night. You told me that you hadn't gone out at all. You seemed like you didn't remember us talking last night. I thought something was wrong with you and secretly observed you. I found out you sneaked out almost every night without waking anyone. And the next day you would wake up on time. I always wondered, how did you come back to the room? The dorm doors were already closed. That night I heard snoring from your bed. Curious, I climbed up and saw you sleeping. But a minute before, I had seen you leave the room. Emily's words made my hair stand on end. Only then did I realize that the me they saw was sleeping in the same bed with myself. She was so close to me, but I was completely unaware. A wave of panic washed over me. It seemed that while I was oblivious, another me had quietly infiltrated every aspect of my life. I asked in a fearful tone, "What is that other me?" In the corner of my eye, I noticed someone's body flinch. I realized that the first one to apply for a change of room was Ashley. I suddenly looked at Ashley. "Ashley, what about you? Why did you change rooms?" Ashley was like a scared animal. Faced with my questioning, she was at a loss, her eyes darting around in panic. Seeing this, Haley said to her, "Say it. No one will think you're crazy. After all, we three saw it. We can't all be crazy, right?" Ashley was still hesitant, biting her lips before she spoke in a trembling voice. What I saw, it was different from what you saw. Her words instantly caught the attention of the three of us. We all looked at Ashley, waiting for her to continue. She struggled to organize her thoughts. That day, Wendy was washing her face in the room. She had cleanser on her face and she was bent over rinsing it off. I saw her shadow in the mirror. It looked down, watching her. I was squatting behind her, tying my shoelace. The shadow seemed panicked for a moment when it discovered I was watching her. The image was so bizarre. Wendy was bent over, washing her face in front of the mirror, but her shadow in the mirror was looking at me. When she washed her face and looked up, the shadow was normal again. Wendy smiled at me, and the shadow in the mirror also smiled at me. I was terrified. I didn't dare tell anyone, afraid of being called crazy. Ashley's words made my head buzz. Are you saying there's something wrong with my shadow? I asked. I don't know. Ashley screamed. I'm just telling you what I saw. As for what's wrong with you, I don't know. She was a bit agitated, her voice becoming high-pitched. I understood. Anyone who had seen something like this would have trouble remaining calm. We all fell silent. Each of us was lost in thought. After a moment, I bowed to them. I'm sorry. It was my fault for troubling you. Thank you for telling me what happened. Now I am not deaf or blind anymore. Your decision to move out is correct. If I were you, I'd make the same choice. I forced a smile, waved at them, and turned to leave when Ashley suddenly called out to me. Wendy, there is one more thing. I stopped. She hesitated for a few seconds as if gathering courage and continued. Emily doesn't know how you came back to the dorm room? I know. I saw you walking in from outside at around 4 or 5 in the morning. The door was closed. You walked through the door. I suddenly understood why Ashley hesitated so long before speaking. Once these things were spoken aloud, they sounded as if she were losing her mind. No one wanted to be seen as crazy. I thought my problem was merely a misunderstanding between me and my roommates, but now I realized that my real problem was how to accept an absurd truth and force myself to understand and think about it. I have to keep telling myself no one is crazy, not even myself. I carefully examined myself in the mirror. The me in the mirror was staring at me too. Staring at her for too long, I couldn't tell if her gaze was the same as mine. Was she looking at me, or was I looking at her? Goosebumps crept up all over me and I looked away. The me in the mirror did the same, showing me her panic and distress clearly. Tonight I was alone in the room. The me that Haley saw, the me that Emily saw, the me that Ashley feared, could they all be my shadow? If what they three said is true, another me would appear every night. What did the other me want? Would she harm me? At 9 o'clock at night, it was time to sleep again. I forced myself not to fall asleep. But it was strange, my eyelids were heavy and I couldn't lift them. I tried to keep my eyes open, but sleepiness was like a swamp viciously dragging my consciousness, pulling it into a thick, sticky dreamland. I sensed an unusual eeriness. I was just used to sleeping early. I shouldn't be so sleepy that I had to immediately close my eyes. I don't know how long I slept. Vaguely, I felt a stone-like pressure on my lower body, making it difficult to move. I anxiously opened my eyes and saw a horrifying sight. On the dark bed, another me was sitting on me with her back to me. Her lower body was embedded in my body, becoming one with me. She was falling towards me, her back naturally pressing against mine. Suddenly she stopped. She seemed to realize that I was awake. Her long black hair moved slightly. In the dim light, she looked back at me. I saw a face exactly like my own. There was a nearly provocative smile on that face. Then, like a wave crashing into the ocean, she fell into my body. The heavy feeling disappeared. My body felt lighter, and I could move again. However, I was covered in sweat, and sleep was far away from me. During class break, a cup of coffee was placed in front of me. I raised my head and saw Haley's face. She pulled out a chair and sat next to me. You? She hesitated, her eyes filled with worry. I forced a smile. I'm fine. What do you plan to do? Haley asked me. I rested my head on my arm and couldn't answer. I'll help you, Haley said. I thought I had heard wrong, and lifted my head to stare at her blankly. Haley smiled at me. The counselor really asked me to fill out a room change form today. I didn't fill it out. I decided to move back and live with you. Wendy, I don't just consider you a roommate. I also see you as a friend. How can I run away when my friend is in trouble? That's not loyal, right? I looked at Haley for a long time. Honestly, my heart was like a saw cutting me back and forth. I had to try hard to remain rational and advised her. Haley, if I were you, I would choose to protect myself. Your decision to help me now is too much of a friendship-first brain. We don't even know what the other me is. We don't know what she plans to do. We don't know what horrible things we will face. You'll likely get yourself involved helping me. It's not wise. Yes, everyone understands that, okay? Haley hugged her arms and looked at me helplessly. But Wendy, look at your dark circles. Just one night and you look like you haven't slept in half a year. I can't just sit here and watch you suffer without even trying to help. I can't bear it. Her words instantly made my eyes tear up. Enough talking. She winked at me, looking relaxed and playful. Most things we don't know aren't as scary as we think. The unknown only seems scary because we don't understand it. Maybe, after understanding it, we will find it is not worth being afraid of at all. Wendy, didn't you tell me that? I couldn't speak. I reached out and hugged Haley. I said from the bottom of my heart, "Thank you." Haley hugged me back. "Okay. Stop being so sentimental, just tell me. How can I help you?" I calmed down and thought for a while. I do need you to help me do something. It's simple. Tonight after she leaves, you must wake me up. Wendy, wake up, quickly wake up. I was jolted awake by violent shaking. My eyes snapped open, reason returning, and the first thing I said was, "Is she gone?" Haley wiped the sweat from her brow and plopped down on my bed. "Wendy, what are you? A rock? You sleep so soundly I can't even wake you up." I cut her off, telling her to skip the nonsense and get to the point. Haley dragged out the words in a complaining tone. "Yes, she left. I saw her go with my own eyes." "Anne." Her voice suddenly trailed off. The abrupt change made my heart clench. Haley paused for a moment before continuing. "She asked me to bring you a message." My heart skipped a beat. She asked Haley to bring me a message? I digested the news in silence and asked, "What did she say?" Haley's mouth moved for a moment before she finally said, "She said she's waiting for you at the bottom of the 4th teaching building." "She's asking to meet?" Before I could clear my thoughts, Haley asked, "Wendy, do we go to meet her?" "No rush," I said. "I'll confirm something first." I turned on the flashlight on my phone and used my finger to block some of the light, shining it at the wall. My finger cast no shadow on the wall. Haley looked at it with surprise. She wiggled her own finger, and her shadow moved playfully on the wall. "Haley, what do you think a shadow would do if it ran away from its owner?" Haley didn't answer right away. We both fell into deep thought. "Haley, you were right. When facing the unknown, the first thing we should do is try to understand it. Only through understanding can we find ways to deal with it. See, at least we've confirmed one thing. She really is my shadow. My shadow isn't here right now, which means whatever I do now she won't know, right?" I asked. Haley's eyes lit up. "Exactly." I asked Haley, "Do you have Kevin's phone number?" Kevin was the campus heartthrob's name, the shadow's date. The reason I asked was because I knew Haley and Kevin were part of the same circle. Sure enough, Haley immediately puffed up and said proudly, "Not only do I have Kevin's number, I also have his girlfriend Anya's number. Her girlfriend is my cousin's best friend's daughter." "Kevin has a girlfriend?" "Of course. Anya, a true wealthy heiress. Though Kevin acts like a player in front of Anya, he's a total simp, afraid that she will leave him. Anya just came back to the country a few days ago. Kevin has probably been glued to her side, busy sucking up to her." "Is that information reliable?" "Absolutely reliable." Haley patted her chest confidently. "I may not know everything, but there are no gossip secrets I do not know." "I want Anya's phone number," I said, directly holding out my hand. A minute later, I dialed Anya's number. "Anya, hi, I'm Wendy, Haley's good friend. Sorry to call so late, but I need your help. It's a life and death situation." At 11 p.m., a low-key luxury car pulled up in front of the school gate. Anya and Kevin got out of the car. Haley and I were already waiting at the reading pavilion, with snacks and drinks ready. Once Anya and Kevin sat down at the reading pavilion, Haley cleared her throat. Anya, what I'm about to tell you may be unbelievable. But you need to trust me, I'm not crazy. It took over 10 minutes for Haley to lay out the whole story of the shadow. I added details to reinforce the truthfulness of the story. However, Anya and Kevin's expressions inevitably started to look as if they were looking at crazy people. Until I turned on the flashlight on my phone and waved my finger around. They discovered with shock that I really had no shadow. The main reason we asked you here is to ask Kevin if the me that he spends time with has any particular oddities. Kevin was in shock. When he heard my question, he immediately came back to himself. He glanced at Anya guiltily and denied. Let's make this clear. It's not me spending time with you. It's my friends. It has nothing to do with me. We were just friends. I emphasized with a headache. I'm also making it clear. She's her, I'm me, we are not the same person. Kevin wanted to argue further. Anya threw him a cold glance. He immediately shut his mouth. Answer Wendy's questions and don't add anything else. We are here to help, not make things more chaotic. Anya reprimanded. Kevin lowered his head and started to recall the events. She's always trying to get attention and plays around a lot. The places where we hang out. Almost everyone knows her as Wendy. To put it simply, in school you're Wendy. Outside of school she's Wendy. In my mind she's Wendy, you are not. As soon as Kevin finished, something hit me and my face turned pale. Haley tapped my arm asking worriedly, Wendy, are you okay? I forced myself to calm down, shook my head and asked Kevin, did she have any other unusual behavior? I just hang out with her. I don't pay attention to all the details. Suddenly, as if he remembered something, Kevin's expression stiffened. Actually, that was quite strange. She only joins us at our evening gatherings. Come morning, she has to leave at all costs. Once, some of the guys held her down, not allowing her to leave. She became hysterical and yelled, saying it was going to be dawn and she had to go back. That crazed expression was pretty memorable. After exhausting all the topics, there was no more useful information. It was late, and I planned to go to the 4th teaching building to meet her. Anya also wanted to come with us. She wanted to see if what we were saying was true. She wanted to see the shadow that was supposedly my exact double. So, the 4 of us came to the bottom of the 4th teaching building. It was late at night and the vast campus was like a sleeping giant. The bright streetlights at the bottom of the 4th teaching building attracted many small insects, but there was no one else. I asked Haley in confusion, did she ask me to come to the 4th teaching building? Before Haley could answer, my phone suddenly received a WeChat message. I opened it, and my pupils constricted. I received a message from myself, just 6 words. Stand there, don't move. I was still thinking about the meaning when a cry of alarm suddenly sounded in my ear. Careful! The next moment I was grabbed by the arm and pulled roughly to the side. Crash! A loud crash. A white plaster statue, which had been at the spot I was standing, smashed into pieces. If I hadn't been pulled away, it would have landed on my head. We hurried inside the 4th teaching building. Haley said, those statues are used by the art students and they are on the 5th floor. We ran up to the 5th floor. There I finally saw her, my shadow. We had the same hairstyle, the same clothes, even the acne was in the same place on our faces. Miss Shadow, are you having fun acting like me? I asked coldly. The shadow smiled at me. She did not answer my question but declared to me, it's too late, Wendy. You can't stop me. Stop you from doing what? I asked. Don't try to trick me, the shadow said, as if she had seen through me. She laughed openly. I know you have a lot of questions and I won't answer a single one. You can guess, the more you guess, the more wrong you'll be. Okay, then I'll make a bold guess. I wouldn't be outdone. I stared hard at the shadow, not budging an inch. I guess your purpose is to take my place, to become the owner of this body. Am I right? I asked. The shadow just smiled and said nothing. I didn't care about her reaction and continued to guess. You have already started your plan to take my place. The first thing you did was to seek attention. You needed to gain the attention of a group of people, and make them think you were Wendy. Your first step was successful. Its effect on me was that I gradually became immersed in my dreams, and was difficult to wake up once I was asleep. When you finally succeed, I may really not wake up again. Because then, I would become your shadow. I paused and watched the shadow's reaction. The smile on her face had disappeared, replaced by a less than happy expression. I continued. Now you're implementing your second plan. The statue that was thrown at me was your doing. Although you hit me with a statue, you cannot kill me, right? There are many opportunities to kill me. You didn't act, but you went out of your way to lure me here, then throw a statue at me. That is because some rules are restricting the way you can hurt me, right? What are the rules? Do you dare tell me? My questions became more and more aggressive. The shadow still didn't say anything, but the way she looked at me was no longer relaxed. I curved my lips, gave a contemptuous smile, and spoke directly to her. You don't dare tell me because I guessed everything right. It's not that easy to replace the owner, is it, Miss Shadow? Heh. The shadow finally couldn't bear my provocation and sneered. Actually, it's not as difficult as you think. In the human world, there are things happening every day where the owner is replaced by a shadow. There are many such people around you. It's just you haven't discovered it. What's ridiculous is that you will even look for reasons to defend the shadows. People you haven't seen for a while, when you meet again, they have changed dramatically. You say that's growth. People who have experienced a major illness, after they get better, their temperaments change completely. You say they have seen the light. People who were always cheerful and talkative, and later become introverted. You say that's life. You've never suspected that they have long been replaced by their shadows, and are no longer the person you once knew. Wendy, you will be next. The shadow's voice was as firm as a vow. Is that so? I was as calm as an old monk. Shadow, I said slowly, I have one last question. If those people don't let you go, what will you do? The shadow's eyes widened. She understood what I said. A look of panic flashed across her face. You panicked. It seems I was right again. The shadow lunged at me. Haley and Kevin reacted quickly, grabbing her on both sides and pressing her firmly against the wall. Anya even rushed in front of me, trying to stop the shadow from getting closer. The shadow was furious, struggling like crazy. I took in her reaction, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Shadow, let's try this again. Let's see what happens when you can't return to my body on time. The night was long, and the shadow struggled against us until the early morning, when she became hysterical. Her veins were bulging, she seemed to have endless strength, crashing around like a wild bull. However, Haley and Kevin held her down tightly. The difference in strength was too great. The shadow's struggles were futile. As the moon set in the west and the sun rose in the east, the first rays of morning light broke through the clouds. The shadow's body seemed to be diluted, its color gradually fading until it disappeared completely before our eyes. At the same time, the sun made my shadow long and clear on the ground. I raised my hand, made different gestures, and the shadow did the same. My shadow was back. Kevin collapsed onto the floor, exhausted. Phew, he exhaled. We finally took care of it. It sounded as if he had survived a catastrophe. He looked up at Anya with pleading eyes, like a puppy looking for a reward. Anya coldly ignored him. Everyone was tired, too tired to care about decorum, and sat down cross-legged on the floor. Wendy, Haley said as she sat next to me, reaching out to play with my shadow. Did she really disappear? My gaze also fell on the shadow. Who knows? No textbook had ever told me how to determine whether one's shadow was normal. I could only use the most clumsy method to verify the answer. I set my alarm. Every hour the alarm went off. When I woke up, I wiggled my fingers and looked to see if there was my shadow on the wall. I did this every day. The shadow was always there. Slowly, I accepted the fact that the shadow had returned to normal. Haley also stopped staying with me every day. She decided to go back to her usual routine of going home on the weekends. Her family had been urging her many times. On the day she went home, she was very worried and told me repeatedly, "Call me if anything happens, okay?" She said this 300 times and I was starting to get annoyed. At midnight, she called again. I was about to scold her when I heard a familiar voice. "Wendy, you are so good at guessing. Why don't you guess why Haley's phone is in my hand?" My mind exploded. After a long moment, I finally found my voice and shouted, "Shadow!" A triumphant laugh came from the other end. "Wendy, I can't kill you, but I can kill Haley. I'll give you half an hour. If you show up in front of me, I'll let Haley go. How about it? No, I said resolutely without hesitation. The shadow was caught off guard. Wendy, I know you. You don't have to act tough. If you don't show up, I'll take photos of Haley's dismembered body and send them to you. Is that so? I nudged Haley, who was next to me. Say something, let her hear. Haley, who had been silent, burst out laughing. Her laughter reached the shadow's ears clearly. A long silence descended on the other end of the phone. I could imagine the shadow's expression. I slowly explained to the shadow, Haley installed a security camera in the room. Your every move is under her eyes. She didn't even tell me that she had installed a security camera. If I don't know, then of course you wouldn't either. You were only guarding against me, and you weren't guarding against her. You pretended to disappear, secretly hibernated, then waited for an opportunity to act. While Haley was gone when I was the only person left in the room, you reappeared, used my phone, deleted all of Haley's contact information, and pretended to be her. You were trying to trick me. But right after you went out to set up your plan, Haley woke me up. You didn't expect it, did you? That she never went home. Do you want to guess what we are planning to do? I could hear the shadow's heavy breathing. She was panting like a bull. She had been completely outwitted. I gave her one last blow. I always believed that the way to eliminate you was to keep you from going back into my body. Since holding you and preventing you from going back doesn't work, then let's try a second way. What if you can't find me? Shadow, Haley and I are not in the room right now. The other end was silent. Her reaction pleased me. I announced with a smile, Shadow, the hide-and-seek game has started now. Through the security camera, we saw the shadow frantically searching the room. She kept muttering, Where is it? Where is it? She opened the closet and pulled out all the clothes. She lay on the floor, stretching her neck to look under the cabinets. She lifted the covers on the bed, and when she found no one, she angrily swept everything to the ground. While the shadow was searching for me all over, Haley and I had already left the school with Anya's help, and had moved into her huge mansion. The three of us were lying side by side on a sofa bigger than a bed, drinking champagne, and enjoying delicious private chef-prepared desserts. In the dorm room, the shadow was raging helplessly. On Anya's mansion security camera, Kevin was kneeling on the ground, crying and begging for forgiveness. However, Anya only said one sentence. We're over, don't bother me, go away quickly. Kevin's tears were worthless in her eyes. In front of the sofa, there was a huge floor-to-ceiling window. We watched the sun rise, and the shadow's body began to burn. The fire on her could not burn anything else, only her, turning her into thin air. I raised my hand in the sunlight, waving it around. My shadow waved with me. This time the shadow should be completely gone, right? Haley asked. I blinked. Gone. Who knows? The inn.